Hey guys, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in 2022. I'm going to be giving you guys some of my reading stats, and I'm going to be talking about my favorite books and my least favorite books of 2022. So without further ado, let's get into it. Most of the stats I'm going to be going over are from my year in books on Goodreads. So I read 23 books in 2022 and I read a total of 8,383 pages total. So the shortest book I read in 2022 was Breath by James Nestor at 214 pages, and the longest book I read in 2022 was The House of Hades by Rick Riordan at 597 pages. So the average length of books I read was 364 pages. The highest shelved book that I read in 2022 was Red, White, and Royal Blue, coming in at 1,591,138 people also shelving Red, White, and Royal Blue. And the least shelved book on Goodreads I read in 2022 was Hungry Hearts, edited by Elsie Chapman and Carolyn Tung Richmond, at 10,065 people also shelving it. The average rating that I dished out in 2022 was 3.9, which is about average for me. It's been about 3.9 every year. And the book I read in 2022 with the highest rating overall on Goodreads was The House of Hades by Rick Riordan, which does not surprise me at all. The first book I read in 2022 was 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston, and the last book I read in 2022 was In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. So in terms of meeting my Goodreads challenge, I set it to 30 at the beginning of the year, and towards the end of the year I was like, there's no way I'm going to read 30 books. So I quickly changed it to 24, and then I was like, I don't have time to squeeze in another book, so I changed it to 23, so that way it was like 100% completion. So did I cheat a little bit? Maybe, but I'm still proud of the fact that I read 23 books in 2022. I really want to save the best books for last, so first I'm going to be talking about the books that really disappointed me in 2022. Luckily there weren't that many, and I didn't give any book under a 3-star rating except for one DNF. So these books aren't bad by any means objectively or any sense of the word. They were just books that kind of let me down. So going in no particular order, the first book I have is The Desolations of Devil's Acre by Ransom Riggs. This is the 6th installment in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series, and if you guys know me and you know my channel, you know that this is one of my favorite series of all time, and I was really curious to see how Ransom Riggs was going to wrap up this series that I love so much. And maybe because I'm a little bit biased to the series and this series sparked my love for reading again, I am a little bit biased and I kind of had really high expectations going into this. I talk about this more in depth in my wrap-up video of this book, but to sum it up, I think this series should have ended in a 3-book series, and I really appreciate Ransom Riggs for trying to like extend the series, add more to the universe, and things like that, but this just really fell flat for me. This was the lowest rated book that I read in the entire series. I just felt like content-wise, this was regurgitating a lot of the same plot lines, dialogue, scenarios as the last couple of books, and I just feel like it was wholly unnecessary to drag out the series farther than 3 books. So yeah, overall this was a little bit disappointing. I still gave it, I think, like 3.5 out of 5 stars. It wasn't terrible by any means, and I still highly recommend the series. I was just a little bit let down by this one. So up next is Cinderella is Dead by Kalynn Bayron. This is another book that I talked about more extensively in my most recent wrap-up video, but this one is a young adult fantasy that follows the basically world that Cinderella lived in 200 years after her death. And the Cinderella story has become kind of like a Bible that people have to follow, and every year girls are sent off to the castle to go to a ball to be married off, basically, and they have no say in it. So usually I really love strong female characters and feminist-centric stories, but this one just fell flat for me, and I felt like the world building wasn't as fleshed out as I would have liked it to be, and also I didn't really believe everything that was being told to me. Like, I just felt like our main character's motivations weren't convincing to me. Like, I don't know why she was the one who had to be leading this rebellion against her world. That being said, I still really enjoyed the book, and I thought it was a really good, solid YA fantasy. It just kind of fell flat for me. So the next book is one that I have DNF'd twice, once this year and once last year, and I will not be picking it up again, and that is Doll Bones by Holly Black. This is a middle grade fiction book, and I picked it up one day on a whim at a thrift store, and I saw the author name Holly Black and naturally had to pick it up. As you guys know, Holly Black wrote the Cruel Prince trilogy, which I haven't read yet but is very, very hyped all across BookTube, and I was really, really eager to read a Holly Black title even if it wasn't the Cruel Prince trilogy. And normally I can read middle grade books with no problem. It's never an issue for me of the main characters being at different age levels. I like to read all different kinds of genres and age levels and things like that, but for some reason I was just so thoroughly bored by this book. I just could not bring myself to turn each page, and it was a truly grueling process to try to force myself to read it. I'm not saying this is a bad book by any means. It is a cute little Goosebumps style story, and I think this would be perfect for the target audience, but it just wasn't really capturing my attention. So up next I have Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper, and if you guys know anything about me, you might know that I absolutely love witchy books, and maybe because I love them so much I hold them to a higher accord than any other genre or like kind of book that I read. I was really drawn to this cover, and I hadn't heard anything about this book on BookTube or Bookstagram or anything like that. I just wanted to get a nice little witchy book during this previous fall season, and this book was pretty good. Like I said, I didn't give any of these less than 3 stars. I gave this one, I think, exactly 3 stars. I just think that the revenge plot could have been thickened a little more, and I didn't care too much about these like witch trial happenings, things that were going on in the hometown. I couldn't really get behind the romance either. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with this book. I still really enjoyed it, and I think it was a great, nice, like, spooky season book to read. It just fell flat for me in a couple ways. So the last disappointing book I have of 2022 is Anna K by Jenny Lee. This book had a lot of hype when it first came out. I don't know if that was because it was actually good or if people were just getting pushed the book by publishers, etc. But nonetheless, I had heard a lot about this on BookTube and Bookstagram, and I was really, really eager to read it. I heard it was a great YA coming of age story, and I think that in some regards it is, but also I was just kind of put off by a couple things in this book. So first and foremost, I didn't love how these teenagers were acting like they were like 20-somethings. And I don't know if it's just because these characters are in a different tax bracket than me, but the way that they were living was definitely the way that people in their 20s live that I like know or have known before. I feel like the age level was a little bit off-putting, and I couldn't really get behind it or believe it because the things that they were doing as teenagers were just like way too much. So I'm just gonna come out and say it. I thought the ending was pretty stupid in my opinion. It definitely is a shocking end to the book, but I just thought that it was kind of stupid and didn't really further the plot very much. But then again, I'm also not going to read the second book and find out, so I don't know. That being said, it wasn't a terrible book. I still read it front to back and really was enjoying some of the drama that was going on in the book because naturally, who doesn't love drama? But it was just a little bit disappointing for me, and that's okay. Moving on from the more disappointing books of 2022, I'm going to be talking about my favorite books of 2022, which are all of my 5-star reads, which ended up being a total of 6 books in 2022. I don't think I'm going to pick like a top 3 or top 5 or anything because I did only read 6 5-star books, so there's really not that many to choose from, so I'm just going to tell you guys what I liked about all of them. So the first one I have is Breath by James Nestor. This is an adult nonfiction book that follows our author as he's going on basically this huge adventure across the world to discover more about the history of breathing and breath work, and it's a very, very interesting book. I read this book towards the beginning of the year, and I still think about it like every single day. The author talks about monks who keep their body temperatures controlled through breathing in freezing sub-zero temperatures in the Himalayas. The author also talks about Wim Hof, who created the Wim Hof method, which is a very popular breathing method, and talks about how he can plunge himself into sub-zero temperatures based on his breathing method and heating up his body. He also talks about the way that you breathe can change the way that your jaw forms as you're a developing human. And he undergoes all of these different studies about breathing. He talks a lot with a lot of different people who have different ways that they use breath to improve their life. So he talks with yogi masters and how they control their breathing during the flow of yoga. He talks about fire breathing and all these different really cool things regarding breathing. I'm not gonna lie, when I first heard about this book from my boyfriend, I thought this was like gonna be some pseudoscience, wackiness. I was like, why would somebody write an entire book about breathing? It's something that we do every day and we don't even think about it. I think this book made me realize that we should be thinking about it because it can actually affect your health and the way that you breathe. Because of this book, I actually started mouth taping, so taping my mouth shut while I sleep so that I don't breathe through my mouth. I'm gonna stop rambling about it, but overall, I think this was a super impactful book. And like I said, it's something that I think about literally all the time. It has impacted a part of my lifestyle, and I really, really highly recommend this book. I really loved it. And it's only 214 pages, so it's a very short read. The next 5-star book I have is, surprise, surprise, The House of Hades by Rick Riordan. Most of the Rick Riordan books I've read, I've given 5 out of 5 stars because I love everything about them. This is the 4th installment in the Heroes of Olympus series that follows after the events of Percy Jackson, the Olympian series. Instead of reading Harry Potter growing up, I was definitely a Percy Jackson kid, so these books just hold a very special place in my heart, and I just love how funny they are and how it just makes you nostalgic and think of friendship, and it also has Greek mythology, which I love, and I think this is a really palatable way to learn about Greek mythology. So yeah, most of Rick Riordan's books I read are going to be 5 out of 5 stars, so it's really no surprise that this book is on here. So up next is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This book was actually in one of my 5-star prediction videos, I believe from either 2019 or 2020. I really can't wait to read it. It seems like a lot of fun. So many people highly praise this, and I can't go wrong with an LGBT romance, so I really think I'm going to love this. And I finally got around to reading it 2 or 3 years later, and I in fact did end up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. So this is an adult male-male romance, and it follows the son of the President of the United States and the prince/son of the Queen of England. So they definitely have a rivalry with each other, and they've never liked each other, but the tabloids and the press seem to think that they are the best of friends, so to keep up appearances, they keep hanging out, and some feelings might ensue. I honestly just have nothing bad to say about this book. It was really funny, and I loved the witty banter. I loved the rivalry to romance. I loved everything about it. So yeah, this one was a solid 5 out of 5 for me. The next 5-star read I have to talk about is All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. This is a young adult fantasy. This is the first in a duology, and it follows our main character Amora, who is due to become the queen and high animancer of her kingdom. Each island in her kingdom of Visidia has different modes of magic, but her family specifically has the ability to see into people's souls and can kill them using a piece of like their hair or their teeth. It's a very interesting magic system. But during Amora's ceremony to display her magic, it goes horribly wrong, and so she has to flee the kingdom in order to basically clear her name and find out how she's going to deal with everything that she's learned about her kingdom behind the scenes. I really, really loved this book. It has so many elements of books that I love. It takes place on an island by the water. There is a kingdom with magic that is reminiscent of Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's an amazing, strong female main character, and she kind of goes through a morally gray struggle, which I love to read about. And there's a little bit of romance in there. So this book overall has so many elements that I love. There's also like mermaids and pirates and everything that you could possibly want in a fantasy book. Yeah, overall, nothing bad to say about this one. This one I really tore through because it was so good. So this next book is going to be kind of like a sneak peek because I do my wrap-up videos at the end of every season, and I was not planning on talking about this book until the end of February, but I will talk about it with you guys a little bit just because it is a 5-star book. I really did enjoy it. So that is The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. I absolutely love reading books that take place during Christmas and have all the cozy like Hallmark movie vibes, and this book has exactly that. This is an adult contemporary / romance, and it follows these 2 twin sisters who live very different lives. One is a baker in their small hometown, and she's kind of trying to take over the family bakery, and the other sister lives in California, living a very lavish life, and she basically works on a show that is reminiscent of Cupcake Wars. Until one of the twins gets a head injury, so they decide to swap places for a week around Christmas, and thus chaos ensues. This book has everything I love in a book, especially a cozy holiday book. It's got baking in it, which I really enjoyed, and it's something I learned that I actually really love in books. I love reading about food, and I love reading about baking, and this book had so much of that. I really also like the secret identity aspect of the sisters switching places and all of the mishaps that ensued following that. I thought the romance was really cute and really cozy, and this definitely had all of the Hallmark movie vibes. especially in the small town setting at the bakery. So yeah, overall there was nothing I didn't like about this book. I loved every second of it. I flew right through it, and I think this is just a perfect holiday read. So the next and last 5-star book of 2022 I'm going to talk about is probably objectively my favorite book of 2022. If I had to pick one, this one would probably be my #1 favorite, and that is The Vine Witch by Luann G. Smith. This is a book that really took me by surprise because I have no idea where I heard about this book. I have never heard anybody on BookTube talk about it or Bookstagram. I just happened to come across it. And as someone who loves witchy books, naturally I had to pick it up. This book kicks off with our main character, who is a witch who becomes hexed into a frog. And so the very first chapter of this book is her being broken from that spell, and the rest of the book is her trying to plot her revenge. I cannot think of a single thing I did not like about this book. I totally loved it. I loved the style of magic that was in this book. It felt more like old-timey, if that makes any sense. I also really like that this book was sort of ambiguous with the time period that it took place in. I feel like it could just as easily take place now as back in like the 1900s. I think it's definitely leaning more towards the 1900s, but it does have some elements that would make me think that it's a little bit newer. This book also takes place on a dreary vineyard, and I loved everything that went into the care and upkeep of the vineyard and the magic used to keep it going. I loved the revenge plot, I loved the drama, I loved everything about it. This book made me feel the way that I felt about Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman when I read it for the first time last year, and I never thought I was going to come across a feeling in a witchy book like that again. So I was really, really pleasantly surprised with this one. So overall, I really, really loved this book. This was probably my #1 favorite of 2022, and it's not a book I'll soon forget. So I think that's it for my reading stats and my least favorite and most favorite books of 2022. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like and subscribe down below, and hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss a single upload. Leave a comment and let me know what was your favorite and least favorite book of 2022. Let's just chat in the comments. And have a good day. Bye!